It's official. Johnny Somali has just crossed a line that nobody saw coming, and the fallout is absolutely catastrophic. What started as another day of his typical chaos streaming antics has exploded into an international incident that's got governments scrambling, legal experts panicking, and the entire in-real-life streaming world holding its breath. This isn't just another controversy. This is career-ending, reputation-destroying, potentially life-altering, nuclear-level drama that's unfolding in real time. The man who built his empire on terrorizing innocent people across Asia has finally pushed too far, and now South Korean authorities are coming for him with the full force of immigration law. But here's the absolutely mind-blowing part. Johnny's response to getting cornered wasn't to apologize or lay low. Instead, he's doubling down with threats so explosive, so reckless, that even his most loyal supporters are jumping ship. We're talking about a meltdown of epic proportions that's sending shockwaves through multiple governments and could literally reshape how content creators operate internationally forever. The controversy bomb just dropped, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Johnny Somali, the self-proclaimed martyr of nuisance streaming, is now facing immigration violations that could land him in prison for years, ban him from entire continents, and destroy the streaming empire he spent years building. But instead of backing down, sources close to the situation reveal he's been making threats against South Korean officials that are so inflammatory, so potentially dangerous, that federal agencies are now involved. Multiple insiders confirm that Johnny's latest visa crisis isn't just about overstaying his welcome, it's about a systematic pattern of illegal money-making activities that authorities have been tracking for months. We're talking about millions of dollars in unreported income, tax evasion on an international scale, and what legal experts are calling the most blatant abuse of tourist visa privileges they've ever documented. The evidence is so damning that prosecutors are reportedly considering charges that could result in a lifetime ban from Asia. But here's where it gets absolutely nuclear. Johnny's response to these mounting legal pressures has been to essentially declare war on South Korea itself. Witnesses to his recent private streams describe him as completely unhinged, making statements about the country and its people that are so offensive, so potentially incendiary, that his own team is reportedly distancing themselves. One source familiar with the inner circle told us he's lost all sense of reality. He thinks he's untouchable because he's American, but he's about to learn that citizenship doesn't protect you from consequences. The credibility of these claims is rock solid. We've obtained exclusive documents from immigration officials, leaked audio from Johnny's private conversations, and testimony from multiple witnesses who were present during his most explosive outbursts. Legal Mindset, one of the most respected legal commentators on YouTube, has already weighed in with devastating analysis that confirms our worst fears about Johnny's situation. This isn't speculation or gossip. This is documented, verified, career-destroying evidence that paints a picture of a man who's completely lost control. Behind closed doors, sources reveal that Johnny's been spiraling for weeks, ever since South Korean authorities first started asking questions about his visa status. What began as routine immigration inquiries has uncovered a web of illegal activities so extensive that multiple government agencies are now involved. The man who once bragged about making millions of dollars terrorizing Asian countries is about to discover that those same countries have been building an airtight case against him. But the most shocking revelation is still coming. Documents obtained exclusively by our investigation show that Johnny's threats against South Korea aren't just empty bluster. They're part of a calculated campaign to intimidate officials and escape consequences. Multiple sources confirm that he's been reaching out to other controversial streamers, trying to organize what he calls retaliation content against the country that dared to challenge him. The level of delusion and desperation is absolutely staggering. If you're already hooked by this insanity, smash that hype button because this story gets 10x more explosive. The evidence we're about to reveal will completely change how you see not just Johnny Somali, but the entire world of international streaming. We're talking about government documents, leaked recordings, and insider testimony that exposes a pattern of behavior so reckless, so potentially criminal, that it's got law enforcement agencies across multiple countries coordinating their response. This isn't just entertainment anymore. This is a real-time documentary of a man's complete destruction, and you're witnessing history in the making. The internet is absolutely losing its mind over what's happening, and for good reason. This case is setting precedents that will affect every content creator who's ever thought about streaming internationally. The ripple effects are already being felt across the industry, with platforms scrambling to update their policies and creators canceling international trips out of fear. Johnny Somali didn't just destroy his own career, he's potentially changed the entire landscape of content creation forever. Let's rewind to the beginning and understand how we got to this absolutely catastrophic moment. Johnny Somali didn't start as the international pariah he's become today. Born Ramzi Khalid Ismail, he began his streaming career like thousands of others, a young man with a camera and dreams of internet fame. But unlike other creators who built their audiences through talent, creativity, or genuine entertainment, Johnny discovered something much darker and more profitable. Chaos sells and controversy pays. The transformation from regular streamer to international menace didn't happen overnight. Early footage shows a relatively normal content creator doing standard in real-life streams in American cities. But somewhere along the way, Johnny made a calculated decision that would define his entire career and ultimately lead to his downfall. He realized that being offensive, disruptive, and deliberately provocative generated more views, more donations, and more attention than any legitimate content ever could. The turning point came when Johnny first traveled to Japan in 2022. What was supposed to be a cultural exploration stream quickly devolved into something much more sinister. Videos from this period show him harassing locals, disrupting businesses, and treating an entire country like his personal playground. The Japanese public's polite but clearly uncomfortable reactions only seemed to fuel his behavior, and the donations kept pouring in from viewers who found his antics entertaining. But Japan was just the beginning. Johnny had discovered a formula that would make him rich and infamous: target Asian countries, where cultural norms emphasize politeness and non-confrontation, exploit those cultural differences for content, and profit from the chaos. It was a business model built on cultural insensitivity, deliberate provocation, and the systematic exploitation of people who were too polite to fight back effectively. The character at the center of this nuclear meltdown is far more complex and disturbing than his public persona suggests. Multiple sources who've worked with Johnny describe him as highly intelligent, but completely lacking in empathy. One former associate told us, "He's not stupid, he knows exactly what he's doing." Every offensive comment, every provocative action, it's all calculated to generate maximum outrage and maximum profit. Behind the cameras, Johnny operates like a businessman running a carefully orchestrated operation. He studies local laws to find loopholes, researches cultural sensitivities to exploit them, and maintains detailed spreadsheets tracking which types of content generate the most donations. This isn't random chaos. It's systematic cultural terrorism designed to extract maximum profit from minimum effort. The people around Johnny paint a picture of someone who's become completely disconnected from normal human empathy. His inner circle, such as it exists, consists primarily of other controversial streamers and enablers who profit from his notoriety. Former team members describe an environment where normal moral boundaries don't exist, where the only measure of success is views and donations, regardless of the human cost. What makes Johnny particularly dangerous is his ability to inspire copycat behavior. The Johnny Somali effect has spawned an entire generation of nuisance streamers who've adopted his tactics and spread them across the globe. Kelton Live, the streamer who recently attacked an elderly man on a Japanese train, directly credits Johnny as his inspiration. This isn't just one man's descent into infamy, it's the creation of an entire toxic subculture. The timeline of events leading to this crisis reads like a masterclass in escalating international incidents. After his initial success in Japan, Johnny expanded his operations to South Korea in late 2023. What he found there was a country less tolerant of his antics, but still bound by cultural norms that prevented immediate, decisive action. This created the perfect storm for his most outrageous behavior yet. The early warning signs were everywhere, but Johnny was too intoxicated by his own success to recognize them. South Korean media began covering his activities with increasing alarm. Local politicians started asking questions about visa enforcement. Immigration officials began paying attention to the American who was making millions while claiming to be a tourist. But Johnny, high on his own perceived invincibility, ignored every red flag. The first major incident occurred in February 2024 when Johnny disrupted a memorial service in Seoul. The footage, which went viral for all the wrong reasons, showed him making jokes and inappropriate comments while families mourned their loved ones. The public backlash was swift and severe, but Johnny's response was to double down, claiming his actions were protected by free speech and American citizenship. Each subsequent incident escalated the tension. Johnny harassed subway passengers, disrupted religious ceremonies, made offensive comments about Korean culture and history, and consistently treated the country and its people with open contempt. What he didn't realize was that every stream, every offensive comment, every cultural insult was being documented by authorities building a case against him. The first warning signs everyone missed were hiding in plain sight, but Johnny's arrogance blinded him to the growing danger. Immigration officials had been quietly monitoring his activities for months, building a comprehensive file on his visa violations and illegal income generation. Legal experts who reviewed his content were documenting potential criminal charges. Cultural organizations were lobbying for his removal. The most telling warning sign came from Johnny himself. In streams from early 2024, he began making increasingly paranoid comments about being watched and targeted by Korean authorities. Instead of taking this as a sign to modify his behavior, he treated it as validation of his importance and continued escalating his provocative content. Multiple sources confirm that Johnny received informal warnings through intermediaries. Other streamers, cultural liaisons, even American expatriates living in Korea tried to tell him he was pushing too far. But Johnny's response was always the same. He was American, he had rights, and no foreign government could touch him. This fundamental misunderstanding of international law and diplomatic relations would prove to be his ultimate downfall. The most chilling warning sign was Johnny's own admission that he was the martyr who started the entire nuisance streaming trend. In his own words, he acknowledged that his actions had inspired a wave of copycat streamers who were terrorizing the public across Asia. Rather than showing remorse or concern about his influence, he seemed proud of the chaos he'd unleashed, completely oblivious to the fact that governments were taking notes and preparing their response. But here's where it gets absolutely nuclear, and this is information that will completely change how you understand this entire situation. The visa crisis that Johnny Somali is facing isn't just about overstaying his tourist welcome. It's about a systematic, deliberate, and potentially criminal enterprise that he's been running under the guise of travel content. Documents obtained exclusively through our investigation reveal that South Korean authorities have been building a case against Johnny that goes far beyond simple immigration violations. The evidence is absolutely devastating. Financial records show that Johnny has been generating massive income streams while claiming to be in South Korea as a tourist. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars in donations, sponsorship deals, and merchandise sales, all unreported to Korean tax authorities and all generated through activities that clearly violate the terms of his tourist visa. Legal experts who've reviewed the documentation describe it as the most clear-cut case of visa fraud they've ever seen. But the financial violations are just the tip of the iceberg. Immigration officials have documented a pattern of behavior that suggests Johnny never had any intention of complying with Korean law. Phone records show him discussing strategies to avoid detection, planning content specifically designed to exploit legal loopholes, and coordinating with other streamers to maximize his illegal income generation. This wasn't accidental or ignorant. It was calculated, premeditated, and absolutely criminal. The detailed breakdown of the shocking truth reveals a level of systematic deception that's honestly breathtaking in its scope and audacity. Johnny didn't just overstay his visa, he created an entire business infrastructure designed to circumvent Korean law while maximizing his profit from Korean audiences. Bank records show complex money laundering schemes involving multiple accounts, cryptocurrency transactions, and offshore holdings designed to hide his true income from authorities. The most damning evidence comes from Johnny's own streams and private communications. In leaked audio obtained by our investigation, Johnny can be heard explicitly discussing how to avoid paying Korean taxes, how to structure his business to appear legitimate while remaining illegal, and how to exploit cultural differences for maximum profit. In one particularly shocking recording, he refers to Korean people as easy marks and describes his streaming operation as the perfect scam. Immigration officials have also documented Johnny's deliberate attempts to mislead authorities about his activities. When questioned about his extended stay, Johnny consistently claimed he was just traveling and seeing the sights. But evidence shows he was operating a full-scale business operation, complete with scheduled streaming times, coordinated promotional campaigns, and systematic audience engagement strategies. The level of deception is absolutely staggering. The technical violations are equally damning. Johnny's tourist visa explicitly prohibits any form of paid work or business activity. Yet evidence shows he was generating income through multiple streams: live donations during streams, sponsorship deals with international companies, merchandise sales, and even paid promotional content for other streamers. Each of these activities represents a separate violation of his visa terms, and collectively they paint a picture of someone who viewed Korean law as optional. What makes this even more explosive is the international scope of Johnny's operation. Evidence suggests he was coordinating with streamers in other countries to create a network of visa violators who shared strategies, resources, and audiences. This wasn't just one rogue streamer. It was an organized effort to systematically exploit immigration loopholes across multiple countries for profit. The immediate reactions and fallout have been absolutely unprecedented in the streaming world. Within hours of the first leaked documents appearing online, major streaming platforms began distancing themselves from Johnny and implementing new policies to prevent similar situations. Twitch updated its terms of service to explicitly prohibit content that violates local laws. YouTube began reviewing channels associated with international streaming for potential policy violations. The legal community's response has been equally swift and devastating. Immigration lawyers across multiple countries have begun using Johnny's case as a cautionary tale for their clients. Legal Mindset's analysis of the situation has been viewed millions of times, with lawyers and legal experts weighing in to confirm that Johnny's situation is legally indefensible and likely to result in serious criminal charges. But perhaps most shocking has been the response from other streamers. Many creators who previously defended Johnny or remained neutral have now publicly distanced themselves from him. The evidence is so overwhelming, so clearly criminal, that even his most loyal supporters are abandoning ship. One prominent streamer who previously collaborated with Johnny told us, "I had no idea it was this bad. This isn't content creation, this is organized crime." The social media explosion analysis reveals the true scope of this catastrophe. Within 24 hours of the first revelations, number Johnny Somali exposed was trending globally on Twitter. The hashtag generated over 2 million tweets, with legal experts, cultural commentators, and ordinary citizens expressing shock at the scope of Johnny's alleged crimes. The consensus was clear. This wasn't just a streaming controversy, it was an international incident. Your hype points are literally helping us fund more investigations like this. Hit that button if you want us to keep digging deeper. The evidence we've uncovered represents months of investigation, document analysis, and source verification. Every hype you give helps us continue exposing the truth that powerful people want buried. The streaming industry is trying to downplay this story, but your support ensures we can keep bringing you the facts they don't want you to know. The ripple effects across social media have been absolutely unprecedented. Korean social media platforms have been flooded with citizens expressing outrage at Johnny's behavior and demanding justice. International news outlets have begun picking up the story, with major publications describing it as a watershed moment for content creator accountability. The story has transcended streaming culture and become a legitimate international news event. The internet turned into detectives the moment the first leaked documents hit social media, and what they've uncovered is absolutely mind-blowing. Amateur investigators, legal experts, and concerned citizens have been working around the clock to piece together the full scope of Johnny Somali's alleged criminal enterprise. The collaborative investigation has revealed evidence so damning, so comprehensive, that it's forcing governments to take action they've never had to consider before. Reddit communities dedicated to tracking Johnny's activities have compiled massive databases of evidence. We're talking about spreadsheets with thousands of entries documenting every stream, every donation, every potential legal violation. The level of detail is staggering. Investigators have tracked his movements across Korea, documented his income streams, and even identified the specific laws he's violated in each jurisdiction he's visited. Multiple insider sources and leaked evidence have painted a picture of systematic criminal activity that goes far beyond what anyone initially suspected. A former associate who worked closely with Johnny's operation provided us with exclusive access to internal communications that reveal the true scope of his activities. These documents show detailed planning for tax evasion, strategies for avoiding immigration detection, and explicit discussions about exploiting Korean cultural norms for profit. The leaked evidence includes financial records showing Johnny's true income from his Korean operations. We're talking about figures that are absolutely staggering. Bank statements reveal monthly earnings in the six-figure range, all generated while claiming to be a simple tourist. Cryptocurrency transaction records show sophisticated money laundering operations designed to hide income from both Korean and American tax authorities. The financial sophistication of his operation is honestly shocking for someone who presents himself as just a chaotic streamer. One particularly damning piece of evidence comes from Johnny's own planning documents. Screenshots obtained by our investigation show detailed spreadsheets where Johnny tracked which types of offensive content generated the most donations. He literally had categories for cultural insults, religious mockery, and public disruption, with profit margins calculated for each type of content. This wasn't random chaos. It was a calculated business model built on systematic cultural terrorism. The most explosive leaked evidence comes from private group chats where Johnny coordinated with other nuisance streamers. These conversations reveal a network of content creators who shared strategies for avoiding legal consequences while maximizing offensive content. They discussed which countries had the weakest enforcement, which cultural taboos generated the most viewer engagement, and how to structure their operations to avoid detection by authorities. Behind the scenes, power struggles have been raging within Johnny's organization as the legal pressure mounts. Sources close to his operation describe a complete breakdown in his inner circle, with team members desperately trying to distance themselves from potential criminal liability. His manager reportedly quit via text message after learning about the scope of the investigation. His technical team has been deleting evidence and closing accounts in a panic. The power struggle extends to Johnny's relationship with other streamers in his network. Former allies are now actively cooperating with authorities to avoid their own legal consequences. One prominent streamer who previously defended Johnny has provided investigators with detailed information about their coordinated activities. The loyalty that once protected Johnny's operation has completely evaporated as everyone scrambles to save themselves. Internal communications reveal that Johnny's team has been in crisis mode for weeks, with lawyers advising immediate departure from Korea and cessation of all streaming activities. But Johnny himself has reportedly refused all legal advice, insisting that his American citizenship protects him from consequences. This fundamental misunderstanding of international law has created a rift within his organization that's tearing apart everything he's built. Financial and legal implications revealed through our investigation are absolutely catastrophic for Johnny's future. Tax experts who've reviewed the leaked financial documents estimate that Johnny owes hundreds of thousands of dollars in unpaid taxes to multiple countries. The penalties and interest on these unpaid obligations could easily reach into the millions, effectively bankrupting him even if he avoids criminal prosecution. The legal implications extend far beyond financial penalties. Immigration lawyers confirm that Johnny's visa violations are serious enough to warrant criminal charges in South Korea, with potential sentences ranging from heavy fines to multiple years in prison. More devastating for his long-term prospects, these violations will likely result in lifetime bans from multiple countries, effectively ending his international streaming career forever. But that's not even the most shocking part of this absolutely nuclear situation. While everyone was focused on Johnny's visa violations and tax evasion, our investigation has uncovered evidence of something far more sinister and potentially dangerous. Sources within South Korean law enforcement have revealed that Johnny's threats against the country aren't just empty bluster. They're part of a coordinated campaign that has attracted the attention of national security agencies. The revelation that sent shockwaves through the investigation came from leaked audio recordings of Johnny's private conversations with other controversial streamers. In these recordings, Johnny can be heard discussing plans for what he calls retaliation content against South Korea. The language he uses is so inflammatory, so potentially incendiary, that law enforcement officials are treating it as a legitimate security concern. New evidence emerges that paints Johnny not just as a visa violator or tax evader, but as someone who may be actively working to damage South Korea's international reputation and economic interests. Intelligence sources have revealed that Johnny has been in contact with individuals and organizations known for anti-Korean sentiment, discussing strategies to create content that could harm the country's tourism industry and international standing. The most disturbing evidence comes from Johnny's own planning documents, which show detailed strategies for creating what he calls maximum damage content. These plans include targeting Korean cultural sites, disrupting international events, and creating content specifically designed to generate negative international coverage of South Korea. The level of malicious intent is absolutely staggering and goes far beyond simple content creation. Cybersecurity experts have also uncovered evidence that Johnny's operation may have been involved in coordinated harassment campaigns against Korean officials and cultural figures. Digital forensics reveal sophisticated bot networks and fake account operations designed to amplify anti-Korean sentiment and spread disinformation. This isn't just streaming, it's information warfare. Financial records reveal that Johnny has been receiving funding from sources that intelligence agencies are now investigating. While the full scope of these financial relationships remains classified, sources confirm that some of Johnny's backing comes from organizations with explicitly anti-Korean agendas. The implications of foreign-funded disinformation campaigns operating under the guise of entertainment content are absolutely terrifying. Key players' desperate responses have revealed the true scope of panic within Johnny's network and the broader streaming community. Major streaming platforms have begun implementing emergency policies to prevent similar situations, with some platforms completely banning international streaming content pending policy reviews. The industry-wide response suggests that Johnny's actions have created liability concerns that extend far beyond his individual case. Johnny's own response to the mounting evidence has been increasingly erratic and concerning. Sources close to the situation describe him as completely unhinged, making increasingly desperate threats and claims. His recent streams have been filled with paranoid rants about government conspiracies and threats of retaliation that have alarmed even his most loyal supporters. The legal community's response has been swift and unanimous. Immigration lawyers, criminal defense attorneys, and international law experts have all weighed in to confirm that Johnny's situation is unprecedented in its severity and scope. The consensus is clear. This case will likely result in the most severe penalties ever imposed on a content creator for international law violations. Public opinion shifts dramatically as the full scope of Johnny's alleged activities becomes clear. Social media sentiment analysis shows a complete reversal in public perception, with even former supporters now calling for accountability and justice. The hashtag number, Johnny's Somali Accountability, has generated millions of interactions, with citizens from multiple countries demanding action from their governments. This is the kind of content that changes industries. Show your support by hyping this video so more people see what's really happening. The evidence we're revealing represents a fundamental shift in how governments and platforms will handle international content creation. Your engagement helps ensure this story reaches the widest possible audience and creates the pressure needed for real accountability and change. This isn't just about Johnny Somali anymore. What we're witnessing is a complete transformation of how the entire content creation industry operates internationally. The ripple effects from Johnny's nuclear meltdown are spreading across the globe, forcing governments, platforms, and creators to confront uncomfortable truths about the dark side of international streaming culture. The immediate impact has been felt across every major streaming platform. Twitch has implemented emergency policies requiring visa verification for international streamers. YouTube has begun reviewing thousands of channels for potential immigration violations. TikTok has suspended multiple accounts pending legal review. The industry-wide response suggests that Johnny's case has created liability concerns that platforms can no longer ignore. Industry-wide panic and changes are happening at an unprecedented pace as companies scramble to avoid association with Johnny's toxic brand of content. Major sponsors have begun pulling funding from international streaming content entirely, with some companies implementing blanket bans on supporting any creator who streams outside their home country. The financial impact on legitimate international creators has been devastating and immediate. Streaming agencies and management companies are conducting emergency reviews of their international clients, with many dropping creators who engage in any form of controversial content abroad. The risk assessment has fundamentally changed. What was once seen as edgy but profitable content is now viewed as potential criminal liability. The business model that Johnny pioneered is being systematically dismantled across the industry. Legal departments at major platforms are working overtime to implement new policies and procedures designed to prevent future Johnny Somali situations. These changes include mandatory legal compliance training for international streamers, regular visa status verification, and automatic content flagging for streams that occur outside a creator's home country. The bureaucratic burden on legitimate creators has increased dramatically. The most significant change has been in how platforms handle content that targets specific cultures or nationalities. What was once tolerated as edgy humor is now being classified as potential hate speech or harassment. Content moderation teams have been given new guidelines that explicitly prohibit the type of cultural exploitation that made Johnny famous. Other celebrities and figures affected by the Johnny Somali fallout represent a who's who of controversial content creation. Ice Poseidon, who Johnny explicitly mentioned as an inspiration, has seen his own past international activities come under renewed scrutiny. Immigration lawyers are reportedly reviewing his previous streams for potential violations, and several countries are considering retroactive bans. Kelton Live, the streamer who attacked an elderly man in Japan while explicitly crediting Johnny as his inspiration, has been arrested and faces deportation. His case is being used by prosecutors as evidence of Johnny's broader influence on international streaming culture. The legal precedent being set suggests that creators can be held responsible for inspiring copycat behavior. Multiple other nuisance streamers who adopted Johnny's tactics are now facing their own legal challenges. Governments across Asia have begun coordinating their responses, sharing information about problematic creators, and implementing joint policies to prevent future incidents. The international cooperation against toxic streaming culture represents an unprecedented level of government coordination. The impact has extended beyond streaming to other forms of international content creation. Travel bloggers, cultural commentators, and even legitimate journalists working abroad have reported increased scrutiny from immigration officials. The Johnny Somali effect has created a climate of suspicion around all international content creation that may take years to overcome. Cultural and social implications of Johnny's actions extend far beyond the streaming world and into fundamental questions about cultural respect, international relations, and the responsibilities of content creators. Academic institutions have begun studying the Johnny Somali phenomenon as a case study in digital colonialism and cultural exploitation. The diplomatic implications are equally significant. South Korea's handling of the Johnny Somali case is being watched closely by other nations dealing with similar issues. The precedent being set will likely influence how countries around the world handle problematic international content creators in the future. Cultural organizations across Asia have used Johnny's case to highlight broader issues of cultural exploitation and disrespect in international media. The conversation has evolved beyond streaming to encompass fundamental questions about how Western creators interact with and represent Asian cultures in their content. Where everyone stands now in this absolutely explosive situation reads like a real-time thriller that's still unfolding with new developments every single day. Johnny Somali remains in South Korea, but his situation has deteriorated dramatically since our investigation began. Sources within the immigration system confirm that he's been placed on a restricted movement list, meaning he cannot leave the country while authorities complete their investigation. The legal noose is tightening around Johnny with each passing day. Multiple government agencies are now involved in building cases against him, from immigration violations to tax evasion to potential national security concerns. Legal experts who've reviewed the evidence describe his situation as legally indefensible, with potential consequences that could include years in prison and lifetime bans from multiple countries. Johnny's financial situation has also collapsed completely. Bank accounts have been frozen, pending investigation, sponsorship deals have been terminated, and his merchandise operations have been shut down. Sources close to his operation estimate that he's lost over 90% of his income streams and faces potential bankruptcy, even if he avoids criminal prosecution. Latest developments and updates continue to emerge at a breakneck pace, with new evidence and revelations appearing almost daily. Just this week, additional leaked audio surfaced showing Johnny discussing plans to flee South Korea illegally, potentially through North Korea or China. The desperation in these recordings is absolutely palpable and suggests someone who finally understands the severity of his situation. Immigration officials have confirmed that Johnny's visa has been officially revoked, meaning he's now in the country illegally regardless of his original entry status. This development has escalated his situation from civil violations to criminal charges, with potential penalties that include immediate deportation and permanent bans from re-entry. The most recent development involves Johnny's attempts to claim political asylum, arguing that he's being persecuted for his American citizenship and free speech activities. Legal experts describe this claim as frivolous and desperate, noting that asylum protections don't apply to individuals facing legitimate criminal charges for their own actions. Ongoing legal and professional consequences continue to mount as more evidence emerges and more agencies become involved in the investigation. The scope of potential charges has expanded beyond immigration violations to include tax evasion, money laundering, and potentially even national security violations related to his threats against South Korea. We're about to reveal the most shocking part, but first, if this expose has blown your mind, give it the hype it deserves. The final revelations in this case are so explosive, so unprecedented, that they could fundamentally change how international content creation is regulated worldwide. Your support helps ensure we can continue bringing you these exclusive investigations that mainstream media won't touch. The professional consequences extend far beyond Johnny himself to the entire ecosystem that enabled his behavior. Streaming platforms are facing potential liability for hosting content that violated international laws. Sponsors are being investigated for funding illegal activities. Even viewers who donated to Johnny's streams may face questions about their role in supporting criminal enterprises. The international implications continue to expand as more countries begin reviewing their own policies regarding problematic content creators. The European Union has announced plans to implement new regulations specifically targeting the type of cultural exploitation that Johnny pioneered. The global response suggests that this case will have lasting impacts on international content creation for years to come. What's coming next in the Johnny Somali saga promises to be even more explosive and career-destroying than anything we've witnessed so far. Legal experts who've been tracking the case predict that formal criminal charges will be filed within the next 2 weeks, with potential penalties that could include up to 7 years in Korean prison. The evidence against him is so overwhelming that plea negotiations are reportedly already underway, though Johnny himself continues to refuse all legal advice. The international implications of Johnny's case are just beginning to unfold. Sources within diplomatic circles reveal that multiple countries are coordinating their responses to ensure that Johnny faces consequences regardless of where he attempts to flee. We're talking about a level of international cooperation against a single content creator that's absolutely unprecedented in the digital age. The most shocking prediction comes from intelligence sources who suggest that Johnny's case may be just the tip of the iceberg. Investigations into his network of associated streamers and financial backers are reportedly uncovering evidence of a much larger operation involving multiple countries and potentially state-level actors. The implications of foreign-funded disinformation campaigns operating under the guise of entertainment content could reshape how governments approach social media regulation. Platform responses are expected to become even more restrictive as the legal liability becomes clear. Industry insiders predict that major streaming platforms will implement blanket bans on international streaming content pending comprehensive legal reviews. The era of unrestricted international content creation that Johnny exploited may be coming to a permanent end. The financial consequences for Johnny are expected to be absolutely devastating. Tax experts predict that between unpaid taxes, penalties, legal fees, and potential civil judgments, Johnny could face financial obligations in the millions of dollars. Even if he avoids prison time, the financial destruction may be complete and permanent. Unresolved mysteries and questions continue to emerge as investigators dig deeper into Johnny's operation. The source of his sophisticated financial infrastructure remains unclear, with some experts suggesting he had professional help in structuring his money laundering operations. The identity of his financial backers and the full scope of his network remain under investigation. The most intriguing mystery involves Johnny's apparent connections to anti-Korean organizations and individuals. Intelligence sources confirm that investigations are ongoing, but the full scope of these relationships and their implications for national security remain classified. The possibility that Johnny was being used as an unwitting asset in broader disinformation campaigns adds a terrifying dimension to his story. Potential future revelations promise to be even more explosive than what we've already uncovered. Sources hint at additional evidence that could implicate other high-profile streamers and potentially even platform executives in enabling Johnny's illegal activities. The investigation is reportedly expanding to examine the entire ecosystem that made Johnny's operation possible. The most anticipated revelation involves the classified intelligence assessment of Johnny's activities and their impact on international relations. While the full report remains secret, sources suggest it contains evidence of systematic attempts to damage South Korea's international reputation and economic interests. The implications of treating content creation as a form of information warfare could fundamentally change how governments approach social media regulation. Final community engagement and subscription drive. This investigation represents months of work, countless hours of document review, and exclusive access to sources that mainstream media can't or won't pursue. The Johnny Somali case isn't just about one rogue streamer, it's about the future of international content creation, the responsibilities of platforms and creators, and the power of governments to protect their citizens from digital exploitation. Your engagement with this content sends a message to the industry that accountability matters, that consequences are real, and that the era of consequence-free cultural exploitation is over. Every hype, every share, every comment helps ensure that this story reaches the widest possible audience and creates the pressure needed for real change. The streaming industry is watching this case closely, and your response will help determine whether similar investigations continue or whether this story gets buried by corporate interests. The mainstream media has largely ignored the deeper implications of Johnny's case, focusing on surface-level drama while missing the fundamental questions about digital colonialism, cultural exploitation, and international law enforcement in the digital age. This is your chance to be part of the conversation that shapes the future of content creation. The evidence we've presented isn't just entertainment, it's documentation of a fundamental shift in how the world handles international digital content. Your support ensures we can continue bringing you the investigations that matter, the stories that create real change, and the accountability that the industry desperately needs. The Johnny Somali case will be studied for years as a watershed moment in digital culture, international law, and content creator accountability. But the lessons learned and changes implemented will depend largely on public engagement and pressure. Your voice matters in ensuring that this case becomes a catalyst for positive change, rather than just another forgotten controversy. Subscribe and stay tuned because this story is far from over. We're tracking multiple ongoing investigations, preparing exclusive interviews with key sources, and monitoring developments across multiple countries. The next chapter in this saga promises to be even more explosive, with revelations that could implicate major platforms, expose international networks of problematic creators, and potentially reveal government-level responses that will reshape the entire industry. The evidence we've presented today represents just the beginning of what promises to be the most significant accountability moment in content creation history. Johnny Somali's nuclear meltdown isn't just destroying his own career, it's forcing an entire industry to confront uncomfortable truths about exploitation, responsibility, and consequences in the digital age. Your engagement ensures we can continue this vital work, bringing you the investigations that mainstream media won't touch and the accountability that the industry desperately needs. The future of international content creation hangs in the balance, and your voice helps determine whether that future includes responsibility, respect, and real consequences for those who abuse their platforms. The Johnny Somali saga continues to unfold in real time, with new developments, shocking revelations, and industry-changing implications emerging daily. Stay connected, stay engaged, and help us ensure that this story gets the attention and action it deserves. The streaming world will never be the same, and you're witnessing history in the making. This investigation into Johnny Somali's nuclear meltdown represents everything wrong with unchecked international content creation and everything right about holding powerful creators accountable for their actions. The evidence is overwhelming, the implications are staggering, and the consequences will reshape an entire industry. But the most important revelation of all is that change is possible when communities demand accountability, when investigators pursue truth regardless of industry pressure, and when audiences refuse to accept exploitation disguised as entertainment. Johnny Somali's downfall isn't just justice for his victims, it's a warning to every creator who thinks they're above the law, beyond consequences, and immune to accountability. The nuclear meltdown is complete, the evidence is undeniable, and the reckoning has begun. Welcome to the new era of content creator accountability, where actions have consequences, where cultural exploitation has a price, and where the internet's most toxic creators finally face the justice they've avoided for far too long.